Welcome back, ladies and gents, to the second part of our series, which we are going to be covering whether gaming is a help or hindrance to anxiety and depression. We've had some comments from some of our viewers. We're going to attempt to tackle those. And we're also going to look at the different ways in which gaming has evolved and whether that's also helped or hindered people with mental conditions. Because obviously when we talked about our experiences as children, gaming was very different. So, yeah.
It was a far simpler time.
Oh, yeah, definitely. So I think we're going to start with the comments first, yeah?
Yeah, well, we found it, because obviously we're quite a small channel at the moment, so we've had like people that we know and some people that, well, in your case, even people that we don't know that's come up to us and said, look, you know, I really liked the last episode. And then they've been saying some of their events, like they've been giving us some feedback, but they've more like 99% of the comments that we've had have all been their own personal experiences. And it's quite eye-opening when you actually think about the experiences that other people have had, because obviously you can only relate to the ones that you've experienced yourself. Some of them are quite harsh. There's people that have come up to me and been like, I really loved the video, it really hit home, it really hammered it home that I had some bad stuff going on at home, and I turned to it, and you know, I turned to gaming as my friend, the person that doesn't give up.
It doesn't judge, I suppose. That's what the comments.
Yeah, it doesn't judge. And we've also had other people that have basically said that they've been addicted to gaming for no event or anything, and it's brought them down into a hole. They've lost employment, and they've lost relationships. It's quite a harsh reality.
Oh,
but
definitely.
we've definitely had comments on both sides. One particular one, which is on our YouTube comments from the last video, was... shall I just read it out? I think we should just read it out.
Yeah, go for it.
Great VOD, so many good opinions and views. I have a different angle to the help or hindrance that you may find interesting. But as I wish to keep the reasons private, it may not come across correctly. Using gaming as an escape from many life issues to give a sense of achievement is probably quite common in children and adults, I would imagine. I was a hardcore gamer. It became such an escape due to the events as a child that an addiction kicked in and spanned about 6 to 7 years. I would argue the positives outweigh the negatives, but this is obviously situational. I would argue it saved my life. My twist to this, which is linked, I think, to the toxic trolling comments that you guys were talking about, and negativity from people who game or not, which for me happened as an adult, is when you were manipulated and bullied physically and mentally for being a gamer. Whether they knew or not about the mental health issues that safety net that is your world can get obliterated by words and actions of others and leave you literally mentally dead with no control over how to deal with life and a very tainted happy place. If you take a safety net away from someone negatively, meaningfully or not, that is when you find, I think, those virtual actions becoming reality. Unfortunately, I was left with a long-term effect of being unable to play games alone. Always has to be a distraction / safety net, whether that's Discord or music or something else. Usually other people around is when I'm most comfortable to play. What was once a helpful cognitive tool was later turned into a hindrance trigger. Thankfully, physical activity is good for mentality. So I would vote it can be a fantastic outlet tool to help stimulate the lack of focus and imagination and numbness that depression and anxiety gives. It can be a new world to forget or cope, or to temporarily escape. It can make the darkest days have light. However, the gaming world has become a keyboard warrior heaven, and that is where the bullied can become the bullies, or the bullied can be further pushed into a world of no return. I would also agree it is dependent on the state of mind and the genre of game being played. That's quite a heavy comment, and that's quite a brutally honest comment, because there was a point there that all of it makes sense and all of it is a very good statement. But the thing that kind of flagged for me was it's in the very last paragraph where it goes, it can make the darkest days have light. However, the gaming world has become keyboard warrior heaven. That is where the bullied can become the bullies. Now that there, I think, probably equates to a large percentage of the sort of trolling that goes online. They want to feel that sort of power. They want to feel that sort of dominance over someone else with no consequence. So if they are bullied at school, at work, even at home, they can go online and then they can get their frustrations out and they can really take it out on someone else with no consequence at all. And I do think that's happening quite a lot. Now that's something that's kind of hit me quite hard in a way. I was bullied in school. I mentioned this in the last episode. I'm not going to go over it. And I went home and played games, obviously with the negative events, but I've already gone past this. But I could have taken two routes when I did that. I went home and played games. I was on my own. These games were not online. They were not... I couldn't interact with other people unless I actually physically wanted to either play side by side with someone.
Well, you're completely in control of the world as well.
Well, yeah.
So there's no external interaction by other players. Not only comments, but actual interaction.
Oh, definitely. But in today's age, if I'd gone through the exact same experiences as I did as a child and went through the exact same sort of going home, playing video games to try and get away, now the whole thing is online. Now it's all about online gaming. I would like to think that I would still remain the person that I am, but there is always a chance that I could have been on the other side because I was bullied. Would I have tried to take it out on someone else? Would I have done that? And that's something that kind of, that is a real shot. You think, this could have gone a lot worse for me. I was lucky with how I turned out. But there are some people that go home and they, as we mentioned before, they take it out on other people that they don't know what sort of mental health or what sort of events that are going on in these other people's lives. It can be quite harsh. It can be really nasty. But that was a part of the comment that really hit home for me, I think.
I think the main difference, and I think the closest thing we've got to social media is, everyone has lives and everyone has dramas, issues, things that could be happening in their lives. And other people don't necessarily know, and people like to be private, they don't necessarily tell. And the problem you've got online, whether it is gaming or social media, is the fact that they don't care. They don't see that person and see how they're making them feel. A lot of the time, humans use, and there's studies been done about this, humans use visual cues to see someone's health mentally, whether they're happy, whether they're sad, whether and how they're reacting while someone's talking. You can be having a conversation with someone and subconsciously you can pick up cues from their face about how it's making them feel, from a very covert level, not overt. People look at poker and the whole poker face thing. Online, you don't know how what you're saying is how that's making someone react. And I think there's a lot of irresponsibility online, and especially with children, just because they haven't mentally matured yet, so they don't know.
I think the younger generation are being moulded by the online gaming community.
Oh, definitely. And I think what's going to happen is that they're going to build up this confrontational attitude that they're getting online with no repercussion. They've got no opportunity to look at the person they're saying something to, in their eyes, and then take that into the real world. They're going to get bitch slapped for it.
Well,
make no mistake.
Especially talking about the recent laws and looking down your nose at disciplining your children. If you're not going to discipline your children, like as a parent, they're going to think they're invincible, and that's something you can tell that now when they come into shops and they all walk on the street and they'll just shout random things at random people because they haven't been taught that there is a consequence, which is a hindrance to the gaming community and the people all around it, and it gives it a bad name because when we've covered this before, which is another thing I don't particularly want to go deeply into, but by having such negativity in a video game, it then gets associated with it to a scale when it's more than the actual game itself. Like when you sit there and go, yeah, I play games, right? It used to be like, oh, okay, you like playing video games, adventures. It's all about like a mystical, magical worlds and things. Now, when you play games, I play Call of Duty. All right, so when you play Call of Duty, you try and play up to your mates and you swear and it's that sort of feeling of, when you a good term to put it is when the squad is online.
Yeah,
it's not you go online to play games and enjoy the games. It's when your squad's online, and we all know what happens when squads get together. It's like when people go out drinking, they're always trying to like play up to their mates or trying to impress their mates by by saying something, and it doesn't matter how derogatory they're being to the other people.
I'll tell you a good example of that whole squad culture that I think is negative as well. When I was a kid, I used to play football, and when you play football, you're in a team. And even as young kids, we had a real team mentality, where if we didn't do well in the game, we wouldn't go and berate one person out of the team or have a go at them, and we'd learn to show respect and sportsmanship because, there might be someone on the team that wasn't having a good day and he may have let the team down inadvertently, but you don't go up and start having a go. And what I've seen, the trend I've seen, especially with gaming, is you've got a game like Destiny where you have 6 people in a squad and you've got to really work together to do challenges in the raiding system, where basically you have to work out a series of puzzles and you all have to be quite coordinated. You have to be talking a lot to work out and solve these puzzles. It takes not only skill, planning, but it also takes reflexes of the whole team. Imagine, it's like a 6-player crystal maze or something along those lines. Now, the problem with that is if someone's having a bad time of it and they want to just play the game and just, they've had a shit day at work or they're not feeling particularly good anyway and they just want to see their friends, what you're getting people that then become anxious to actually play games like that, because the people, if they're not doing well that evening, the people are really laying into them for it, berating them, alienating them, isolating them because, the other players aren't getting the achievements they want, or they're not leveling up, or they're not, completing that part of the challenge.
They're not making as much progress as they want because someone's having a bad day.
Exactly.
And then all the anger is directed.
Yeah, because it's behind a screen and because there's no visual contact with anyone, or physically they're not close by, it changes the whole dynamic about how people treat others. If those 6 people were sitting in the same room, I don't think it would be the same. They might still have a go, but I think it would be different because they'd be able to visually pick up cues. Or they might be able to visually pick up cues to say, this person's actually getting quite upset. It's just a fucking game at the end of the day. And, I'm not going to judge people who may, have mental issues and they decide to play a game like that. If it helps them relax, then so be it. But I think that people have a social responsibility to think about what they're doing and think about what they're saying, not only in the real world. And like the point you're making about children, it's not just about consequences. It's about empathy. People have a lack of empathy online. How would they like it? How do they make that person feel? Not the fact, if you do this, this may happen. That's not a cure. That's a preventative. If you tell someone there's going to be consequences to it, they may stop doing it. Doesn't mean they don't want to.
Yeah.
You've got to try and make these people understand how they make others feel, get them to empathize and see that actually, if someone did it to them, they'd feel pretty shit. And it's more dangerous, much more dangerous when you've got people with mental anxieties, issues, depression, things like that. And no one knows. They're just a voice at the other end of a mic. And I do feel that, kids have got to grow up learning online, I would say online social responsibility and online empathy.
That is a good point. It's one of those things that, and the only way that could happen though is if it's enforced by someone, because obviously games companies, or the console companies that of the consoles that they're using, they're not going to enforce it. It should be parents. It should be people.
Oh, it should be people. Like any social issues, it's nature and nurture. You get brought up by your parents, and obviously then as your social circle expands as you get older, you then take from people around you. There needs to be exemplars. Parents need to be social exemplars, showing their children how to react, instead of these certain parents that go online and then they'll be berating people on Facebook instead of gaming. It doesn't set a very good example.
No, it doesn't.
Treat people how you want to be treated, because if you don't, you might treat someone badly and they may be someone that actually is quite fragile, that needs help, and something very drastic may happen. I'm very vehement about this. I think, social responsibility and empathy.
Yeah, that is a very, very sensitive thing, because kids will grow up and they will get to the point where the online community, they will blur those lines and bring it into the real world. Like, people don't see they don't, as you say, they don't experience the empathy. They don't sit there and see the other person getting upset, or seeing the other people, you know, like the anger physically reaching a point where they can't take it anymore. It's something that they can't do. Another good point with this hindrance and stuff is, well, I think you touched this last time. You touched this on the last one, that games are very good to make you forget, but it makes you forget a little bit too much. Like when you're going through mourning or something like that, that you tend to step back, shall we say? You tend to step back away from the situation to play games when you should be dealing with issues and dealing with problems, in your own way.
I mean, I agree. Yeah.
It can be a hindrance in that sort of way.
Well, because gaming's cognitive. If, say, for example, someone's lost someone close to them, it's very important to go through the process of mourning, the different stages. And a lot of the time, that takes you thinking about things. You've got, the denial and the anguish and the anger and the acceptance. And if you're playing something cognitive, if you're playing a game that requires you to think, and really, it's not only distracting, it's bringing hand-eye coordination. You're distracting yourself completely near enough. And then you've got physical distraction, which, yes, if you're playing a sport, that may help, but at the same time, your mind's generally ticking over. So I think that, a lot of things in life, it's dangerous that people use anything as a distraction, because otherwise all you're doing is delaying the inevitable.
Oh, yeah, of course. It's not just video games. There are... it's whether you're playing, as you say.
But video games are more susceptible, because even if you're watching a film, you haven't got to actively participate in that. Well, you're passive, you're watching it.
Yeah.
Whereas in the game, you're having to actively, play the game. So it does take more cognitive concentration. I don't even know if that's a phrase. If it's not, someone correct me. But yes, the interaction, the thinking, the hand-eye and all that. So, yeah.
Yeah. Another comment that we got, I'm not going to name the person. Obviously, we know them personally, but it was quite a nice one. Well, no, it wasn't. Well, I say nice, but it was a meaty one. They went through. You know this person as well, Ali. I'm not going to mention who it was. Basically, going through a failed relationship. They say that time is a good healer. Say you and your girlfriend break up. You've been together for a long time, and you turn to video games, even just to. Instead of trying to get over something by thinking about something and trying to think of how you can fix it, you kind of turn to games just to pass that time. Like, if it takes 3, 4, 6 months to get over someone, that 6 months will seem like a lot quicker if you're playing video games and entertainment to draw it away, instead of, negative things like writing notes or burning stuff, like burning ex-girlfriends' things. It's one of those things it's a good diversion to kind of gradually bring you back into the real world.
I think it's important that you're playing the right sort of genre of game, though.
Well, yeah, it's RPGs, anything like that. But the person that we spoke to, he's obviously gone through relationship troubles for, I wouldn't say a few times, like a couple of times, and you can tell that was the thing that he turned to. That was the reason that kind of kept him going. He didn't chase the person. He didn't sit there and think of, how can I do these things better? How can I, what can I do to change? It was just that thing. No, I will sit this out and I will use this time. Some people do it with things like World of Warcraft, and World of Warcraft, as I think, is a very dangerous game, because as cool and awesome as it is, that's like a second life, and you could sit there and you could just pound hours and hours and hours into it, which we're going to refer to the YouTube comment. You could basically pound all these hours in, and you don't want to miss anything. You're always online because you don't want to miss anything, and so that means you tend to go for like 8-hour days, 8-hour gaming days, just so you could see your friends and then do raids or do quests all day, just in case anything happens within the guild chat, or if there's any arguments, or you can be a mediator for anything. But you don't want to stray away from that and go and do normal. You got to go and do normal, like real world things in case something happens. You want to be there, and then it turns into 12-hour days, and then 14-hour days, and then once you start getting to that stage, you then start substituting your real world tasks with in-game tasks. So for instance, you're like, oh, you know, this is supposed to be happening today, there's a raid going on. Oh, I want to do this raid, but I really should go to work. And then you're like, no, I'll call in sick. That's one day. And you're like, okay, you had your gaming day, and then something else will happen. You're like, oh, I'll call in sick another day. And then you'll go to work, and then you'll always think about something else, and then your work will then drop. And it happens. It does happen all the time.
I know
especially with things like... Yeah, and you'll start playing. It happens with me. I'll tell you my experience with Warcraft, right? And I'm going to get brutal with this because I don't give a shit, right? I started World of Warcraft really late on, Cataclysm. That's when I went in. And that's because my current girlfriend at the time played it solidly. And, you know, if we put all the cards on the table, I didn't feel like I was getting enough attention. It was like, this game was more important. So I wanted to play this game to try and be closer, try and make more of a connection with it, like with her.
Yeah.
And then I got invited into her guild, and, you know, I kind of started to try and make friends and everything, but I was always known as this person's partner. I was never one of the true people. So then I tried to impress them, where I was like, okay, well, I need to be high level. I need to show that I'm not just some guy that's just come on, you know. So I sat there and I did the grind, and it was when 85 was the maximum, and I would get an 85 just so I could have a place when they wanted to do raids or something, or when they wanted to, you know, or is anyone a tank that wants to come in? Well, yes, I am. You know, needless to say, I was always segregated and pushed aside because I didn't have the experience. But I then thought, no, I'm going to get good at this game, and then I'm going to get the best gear, and then I'm going to keep grinding and grinding and grinding and keep doing it. And then all of a sudden I was in a hole for like 2 years trying to get good gear, just try and keep up, to try and get validation from my partner at the time to basically say, yes, actually, you do have a place here. I am proud to call you my partner. And that's not how a relationship should go.
No, of
that's
course not.
You know, that whole relationship was based on that game. Like, she was obsessed with it. She was, you know, she lived it, and she got really friendly with people that were on there, to the point, I'm going to air my dirty laundry here with no names, to the point where basically my partner at the time and this person fancied each other, and they used to send love hearts to each other, and she'd always hide the phone from me. And I'm like, what the hell is this? What's going on? And apparently I was an idiot. And it got into double figures. And I don't know why I didn't just get rid of her after the first. But she was just horrible. And I'm not going to go too deep into that side. But that was the thing where I just kept grinding and grinding and grinding and going deeper into that Warcraft hole to try and get better gear, to try and be accepted by people that I didn't know and I didn't care about. But my partner did at the time. You know, and that was horrible, and it got to the point where I was missing shifts. I never lost my job. I didn't, hands up, I did not lose my job. But there was talks that was just like, well, you're playing this game an awful lot, and I'd never miss a shift. Like, I never like call in sick, you know, at a job. But it would be the point that I would go to work and I would not be in a suitable attitude.
Yeah, of course.
You know, I'd go to work and I'd be angry. I'm like, why are you angry? I'm nothing. But you seem like you're on edge. No, I'm fine.
So it's like you're an addict and you couldn't get your fix.
Yeah, well, no.
But really, were you?
It's not
do you honestly think that you were addicted, or it was a means to an end to connect? So
no,
the frustration
I wasn't addicted to the game.
No,
I was constantly trying to grind. The grind turned from into the game of me grinding something in game to my grind actually being just trying to fight for my partner at the time's attention, which I wasn't getting.
No, that's what I mean. But
so because I wasn't getting the attention, I was getting angry, and I was like, "Why?"
Yeah.
And then
your story is very different to most people's stories with World of Warcraft.
Oh no, I know there is an opposite end of the scale, but that was
interesting because I thought you were going to turn around and say towards the end, well, actually, I became addicted to the game as well. But you were using it as a tool, and many people do this. You know, their partners have an interest, and they try and share the interest, which is completely healthy.
I enjoyed the game. Don't get me wrong. To a point,
yeah.
I loved World of Warcraft. It was a good game, really good game, and I really enjoyed it. And I liked the camaraderie between people that you played with, you know. But the fact is that I never experienced the camaraderie.
No,
I was always witnessing it, but not included.
Your story is more about your partner.
Yeah,
of
it
the
is.
time, because she was the one that had a real addiction to it.
Yeah, she's
I
the
mean,
one that was addicted, but she kind
so
of brought me along. So basically, it was okay for her to keep playing this game, and it's just like, oh no, we are spending time together. We're playing this game.
yeah,
But she didn't give a shit if I was there or not. She
yeah,
wanted to see her friends and do all the other things. Then she'd be like, oh, I'm just going to go and do this raid, or I'm going to go and do this. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll keep questing. I'll keep getting something. You know, I'll get some gold or whatever. And, you know, this is a minor detail, but I knew that there was something that was really nasty, like, about her, that I didn't know it when I first started. I got a good item. It was, I think it was, I don't know what the color scale was now, but it was like a
gold was
purple
epic.
or
Purple is legendary.
yeah, but it was a purple or something,
Mhm.
right? And the auction house was there, and I was like, okay, I'll just put this up. And then I turned round and I said to her, I was like, I've got this. Is this a good price? And then she went, well, why don't you check it? And I was like, well, I don't know how to check. And she's like, oh, hold on a minute. And then she, you know, I thought she checked it. And then she was like, yeah, it's good, right? Yeah, it's good. Just put it up. So I put it up just for it was a ridiculously small price. It was a small price. But then all of a sudden, someone in that same guild that I was in with it had bought it instantly.
Right, so she'd give them a
So
tip.
basically, she'd given a heads up that I was
you
about
over.
to sell this. Yeah, and I was kind of like, oh, that's weird. Because I was up for less than 3 seconds. It was like, and you had to search for gear at the time.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
You couldn't just sit there and go, oh, I'll just look for every legendary or every epic or whatever it's called. You had to search for that item, the thing that you wanted, and then all of a sudden it was up there for a little amount. And then they were like, oh, you know, don't worry about it. Oh, this thing's happened in the game. You've got to learn harshly. And I was just kind of like, you're supposed to be helping me out.
Yeah.
What's this? And then that started an argument. But then that's my experience with that game. That's
I've learned
the addiction became trying to fight for attention.
The irony is with things like that, it's never the game that causes that. It's human nature. So you can have a game which has got it's all about good intentions, isn't it? It's like Facebook.
Yeah.
Facebook, massively multiplayer games. There's good intentions there. You can play with your friends. You can do this. You can do that. But it's the human element that can then make it a bitter experience. Now, World of Warcraft for me, I had a time for about a year where I played it for a lot of hours. That would be my one game for a year. And for me though, I had a positive social experience with it. So I had 4 other people that I would play with. But what's interesting about your story is the fact that, you know, you were right there next to her. You were with her in the flesh. You cared about her. And yet, I'm assuming a lot of people she played with were people all around the world.
Yeah.
And yet there was more stock in them than you.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think what's dangerous about that also is it's almost like it's like the morphing. What's the word?
What, transmogrification in the game?
Yeah, where essentially people don't see, they hear the voice, but they see the avatar.
Yeah.
It's not anthropomorphizing it. Well, I suppose it is in a point, but it's not, because you've got a voice behind it. So, you know, the way she probably remembers these people, unless she's met them in the flesh, could be that avatar.
Yeah, I remember that one person. I remember the one person that she got on particularly well with was someone that had his Facebook account locked down, completely locked down, and they exchanged pictures with each other. Right. Don't know what sort of pictures they were. I don't. But it would always be a case of it would be 4 o'clock in the morning and there'd be a message.
Yeah.
The phone would go off and I'm like, what's that? And then I just kind of like, roll over and just be like, what the f-? And then it would be another message. You're like, what's going on? And I kind of look around and I'm like, this is a message from this guy, but it obviously with the security settings, you can't see what it is.
Yeah.
It's just message from this person. I'm like, why the hell are they messaging? Then it would happen again the next night. Then the next night, then I'd be like, what's going on here? Oh, nothing. Right, well, it seems like there is, because these are unsociable hours. You're asleep.
Did that person live in the country?
Yes, in this country.
All right, okay.
Far away, though.
Yeah. But
UK, yeah, far away. And it got to the point, and I'm not proud of it. But I'm going to air my laundry, that it happened, and I managed to unlock the phone, and I saw it. And it was just, like the square not the square bracket, the diamond bracket, and a 3,
Right.
and that would be all the messages, just like a heart. And I'm like, why are you sending hearts to my partner? Not, what's this going on? Oh, it's nothing. We just do it sometimes. Oh, do you? Well, you don't send that to me.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. But then after that, for a good 5 years, or maybe even more, World of Warcraft was a massive red cross.
Oh, I can imagine, yeah, because
Like,
you associated it with a completely
yeah,
negative
every time that I
experience.
heard World of Warcraft or anything about Blizzard, minus Diablo, because Diablo 3 was my thing.
Yeah.
Well, all the Diablos have always been my thing. As soon as that came out, I was like, no, not up for it. And it wasn't until my current partner, who's amazing, and I'm going to put that in video, right, was that she was quite into Warcraft as well. I was like, should we give it another go? And I was like, why not? And we did. We got the new expansion, Legion. I think that's the newest one. Well, anyway, but Legion anyway. And we started playing, and we were like, yeah, it's all right. But we knew that it wasn't the same. I was kind of like trying to get back into it. It's like, this is weird, and I don't like it, but I do like the grind.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, the grind, though, is, Blizzard.
The grind is rewarding.
The grind is human nature. It's like humans like to collect things. Humans like to upgrade things. Humans like to improve things. So, I think any game like that psychologically can have potentially a detrimental effect to people that are in the disposition of taking it too far, of not being able to split work.
Well, the grind is to get a sense of achievement in a life where you can't. Like, I go to work and, I do my best. But it's, you've got to be honest. It's not that busy. I would love for it to be busy, but it's just not. And that business just isn't. Like, in this location. So then, grindy, looty games are always in favour for me because I feel like I've achieved something. Especially, I'm like, yes, I've got this. I've worked for it. Whereas if I didn't, I don't have any of that sort of satisfaction or gratification in my work. So I won't, if I don't get it in games or anything, I won't get it at all. So I do think that people do kind of thrive for that loot. Loot-based.
I'll tell you where I think that comes from. I mean, I'm a hobbyist. I've got different hobbies that I like to do, but a lot of traditional hobbies that people do, and I'm not talking about, I've never considered sports a hobby. I've never even considered gaming as a hobby. It's a form of entertainment. For me, I don't really consider it a hobby. And people can argue, whether I'm right or wrong. But for me, a lot of traditionalist hobbies are about creation. So you paint something, you create something, you achieve something, or you build something, or you might build models, or you might build a boat, or you might repair cars. But it's all about that improvement. So I think that loot system has kind of psychologically substituted that. Because it really gives you the same feeling of I've worked over 6 months and I've built this model boat, for example, that I can now put on the water, or I've built a model plane, and it's on my shelf. So I think games have really transplanted that now. Like Warhammer is good at that's what I'd call Warhammer figures, where you paint them and you collect. You've got the collecting, you've got the creation, so you've got kind of a creative outlet. And the collection side of that. And there's a lot of games now that psychologically fill those gaps. Whether you create on Minecraft, for example, you could create maps, or you could create a world. So you've got that kind of creation there. And, I think, I don't know, do you consider gaming a hobby?
Not really. I do think it's an entertainment medium that I'm very, very interested in. But I would say a hobby is something that you work towards a goal.
Well, I think like you modding consoles is a hobby for you.
That was a hobby for me. Like,
right, my PC hardware side is a hobby for me because I modify and I, create.
You're working towards a goal. Whereas in a game, okay, you're working towards a goal. You're trying to finish the game, but then there's always a new one that you just kind of, you could throw it away if you want. There's no difference to it. You're not gaining anything except for, I saw the ending. And that's why when companies started to bring in the achievement system and the trophy system in their games, it's because they wanted that sense of achievement. They wanted you to play the games to its completion.
Yeah, you're achieving it and you're collecting.
Yeah, and
It's
that's how they do it. But for me, it's entertaining. I do love it because I like to experience the stories, and I do like to throw myself into a good game. I'm quite an imaginative person. Like when I play a game, right, to get my headphones on, and I imagine I'm that person, and I'm
yeah.
really in it. You know, I'm that sort of person. I'm not really the sort of person that can kind of pick up and just play something and then put it down. But I guess that kind of goes back to how I was as a child when it came to, you know, all the events that happened in my life. I used to sit there, if something bad or good happened, I used to sit there and throw myself into it to distract myself.
Yeah.
You know, if I was bullied at school, I'd go in and I would just completely shut off the world and I would lose myself into a game. You know, and I would not think about the real world because it depressed me, it angered me, it upset me. So that's obviously that's carried on to me now.
In a controlled environment, I think that's absolutely healthy. You know where I think, well, I don't know. I think where the gaming industry's missed a trick. If they really wanted to nab people, what they could do in games is to say, right, if you complete a game or you get 100% achievement, we will then allow you to buy a limited edition model that you can only buy when you can prove 100% achievement. So not only could you create the achievement, you could then have a plastic trophy up on you. It doesn't literally have to be a trophy.
That would be wicked.
But you could have all these games where they've got their main character, and you could get it at you know, you have to pay a fee, but no one else can get it unless they can prove they've completed it 100%.
Yeah, you'd have to put your username on it.
And psychologically, then,
yeah, you worked for it, you got that. You know.
Yeah.
That's a really good idea, and it that would definitely bring my attitude towards wanting to finish things.
It fills a gap there where other hobbies don't, and I think hobbies are really healthy for people because they provide a distraction, a sense of achievement, and their creative outlet. It's like bodybuilders. It's not a hobby. It's it's something that enthusiasts get involved with, but it's not a hobby. I don't think it's a hobby. Other people may say, well, actually, you're creating and building a body.
Well,
you know.
I think there's a fine line between hobby and then it becoming part of your life. Like something with bodybuilding, you can't just pick it up and put it down whenever you want. If you're going to be into bodybuilding, that becomes a way of life. Like you have to eat and, you know, train every day, and that's when it starts to not become a hobby. That starts to become like a lifestyle.
Yeah.
So there are certain things, you know, hobby and lifestyle. There's a thin line between there. But bodybuilding and physical fitness and stuff is another way that is nothing but a cure. I feel for depression and anxiety. I think I'm not, you know, I don't do it, but every time that I've done something physical, like side note, Ali and myself and our partners, we went on a spy mission. I hurt my shoulder, but that's irrelevant. But that was an active thing where we had to crawl. We had to like escape World War III, and it was a genuinely awesome experience.
Yeah, it was great fun.
It was active, and after that, I felt fantastic. Other than my shoulder like being jerked, which that was my own fault, but I felt active, and it just, I'm guessing it releases endorphins or something. You know, and I was like positive. You know, everything was good. You know, I was active, but that can really be a help to depression and anxiety because, you know, the chemicals get pushed around your body and you feel more positive for anything. That sometimes if people are, you know, if they do have depression and anxiety, maybe in some people's cases they should probably steer clear of gaming and then, you know, try going for a walk or a run or just Pokemon Go. You can bring both of them into the same thing. You go, right, well, instead of me sitting there playing Tekken 7 all night, what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk around. No, maybe not at night. But, you know, I'm going to spend this day just walking around the town, collecting as many Pokemon as possible. And then,
yeah, I think it's a perfect segue here, what you said, because I think this is where VR becomes really important. And well, Pokemon Go is augmented reality because it can combine, you know, physical activity is good for everyone. Everyone. Doesn't matter whether you're depressed or not, anxious or not, or you've got some, it's good, you know, keeps you healthy, gets you out and about, you know, and it does release endorphins. But you look at like you say about the Pokemon, perfect example. You're out, and one of my friends, he lost 2 stone. He played a lot of Pokemon Go in the summer, and there were certain events that Pokemon Go had where you had to be in a certain location to collect certain Pokemon.
Yeah.
And he had to walk quite a distance to get to these places. So, yeah, I think I think the augmented reality is really, really important, and that's where I think VR comes in because, like you were saying, you really enjoy being active. There's a lot of VR games now where you have to be physically active, and if you're not physically active a lot of the day, it's a great outlet, especially if
Yeah.
you're working in an office or something, and you can pick up your VR and you're moving around, whether you're shooting at things, you're looking at things, or you're having to duck and move. So I think I think that's really good. And I think the other thing that VR is good for in terms of mental health, you've got a lot of people that are physically disabled, and that can really affect mental health. People that are bedbound, for example, or they're morbidly obese, and it could be regardless of their lifestyle, or it could be the fact that they're on certain drugs or medication that's
There are
made them
certain,
that way.
yeah, I was gonna say there are certain percentages of people that literally cannot help it.
Yeah.
There are some that can, but there are some people that can't, and they just all they want is for experiences
Yeah.
that they can't usually have.
And you've got a lot of people forget about the elderly, and they may find it difficult to walk. And I've got members of my family where it's really difficult. One member of my family, who I'm not going to name who it is, that person finds it very difficult just to walk into their local town centre and back, and they make that journey because otherwise they'd be stuck at home all the time. And I think that for people that find that difficult, and they don't have the ability or the means, or even if you're anxious, and you have a fear of going out or meeting or going to see people, then VR could be a viable option. Where, great example, if someone's bedbound, they could have a VR system and they could experience a whole new place, a whole new world. It doesn't have to be a game. It could be like a 3D rendered city that they've never been to, or a forest that they could have a simulated walk around. And you got the whole immersive experience. I think that could be really healthy for people in those sort of situations.
I think the next step of VR though is going to be Google's going to get involved, and they're going to integrate their Google Maps system into the VR, because they're getting there now. They've obviously got Street View, and now when you go onto the satellite view and you zoom in, every single building is 3D rendered. Now, if you look at it, well, I say 3D rendered, but if a building is angled, it will show it in 3D as angled, and I think that's very clever. But soon it will become like, oh, you put your VR on, you just walk down Google Maps town.
And I think
you go to a town in Google Maps, and people can explore and find new things. And if you're chair bound or bed bound or ill or anything like that, and you actually want to sightsee, you can't go abroad and you can't go on a plane and go on holiday, you can at least get some of those experiences through VR.
Yeah, I think there's people out there, there's people in hospital, for example, and they're long term in hospital, and I believe that if you can be as positive as you can in your mind, it's going to help you heal. I honestly believe that. And I think that some people really need as close to 100% escape as they can. And so for some people, all they can do is sleep, because that's the only way they get escape. But a VR may be another solution where they could be immersed. Once it becomes more practical, I mean, you can have VR on your phone, but once it becomes to a situation where they can just put a small headset on while they're in the hospital bed, and they could be anywhere, or they could be watching a film, but it looks like they're in a cinema.
Yeah.
There's other psychological conditions like phobias, and that people have a phobia of going on planes. People are claustrophobic, so they don't like going on planes or going on trains or anywhere where they can't actually get off. This may be an alternative solution where they could, if they can get onto the vehicle, or if they can get past that initial stage, they can put the headset on and then psychologically immerse themselves in something completely different, where in fact they are in a forest and they can see the sky, and it completely transports them away from that phobia.
Yeah.
So, I think there are definitely some future, but because obviously we were talking about the detrimental effects of the social aspect that it can have with games. I think that the VR actually there could be addiction, of course there could, but I just wanted to focus on a real positive applications of this new technology that it's getting really good now. I think in the next few years they'll be able to shrink it even more. The hardware will be more powerful, so they'll be able to create, because obviously because of the way VR works, you have to have more powerful hardware to make things look as good as it would on the screen. So that the PC has to be, for example, a third more powerful than to show the same sort of visual quality as it does on a flat LCD screen.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean that's my hope for the future in terms of that sort of technology. I definitely think that those applications could really help people like that. And there's other applications that might help psychologically. You've got people that live thousands of miles away. And one of the games I really enjoyed playing, although I never had a chance to play it multiplayer, was Star Trek Bridge Commander, where you're all on the Starship Bridge and someone's the captain, someone's the engineer. But what you've got is a situation where you've got people positioned on the bridge. And obviously it knows where those people are virtually. So if I was sitting in the captain's chair and I look to the left, I may see the helmsman. Now that helmsman playing at home, if he looked behind to the right, he'd see me. Well, imagine if you had a situation where you had family members living in a different country and you could actually have this VR technology where you all put the headsets on and then have a virtual Christmas.
Yeah.
Where you could all sit down, in a shared space and you've got two different rooms, but what you've got is everyone sharing that virtual space, and that might make people feel that they can't travel to see those people. It might make them feel closer.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people suffer with loneliness. There's plenty of jobs out there, where they don't see people for months on end because they've got to work on oil rigs or serve in the military.
It's
even a lighthouse keeper,
Well, it's even people like the elderly people
Yeah.
that are lonely. There's a lot of elderly people that live on their own. That's I can't imagine how depressing that will be. If no one's around, but if you can put on a gaming headset, regardless of what you're doing, whether you're gaming or whether it's 3D Skype or something like just a chat room, like you get like VR chat rooms,
yeah,
just like that. But you could have all with your family, just kind of all. Christmas would be perfect. Some people like especially good for me. I think a good point would be military, because military like soldiers are away for months and months on end.
Yeah, exactly.
But if they could just kind of work just on Christmas Day, they can have just half an hour. Even just half an hour with their partner, and they get to see their baby, but it feels like that they're there, in this virtual room. Obviously you can't do any naughty stuff, but it's you're with your significant other, and it kind of grounds you, and I think that would be fantastic for them.
You could even have a shared experience where you and your partner could watch a film together.
Yeah, you just sit next to each other. You're miles and miles apart, but you can chat, and you can watch a film or your favorite TV program or something. On your downtime.
Yeah, or even play a virtual board game.
Yeah, and the possibilities are endless for that sort of thing.
To bring those people together. So I think there are some benefits with VR, with any experience like that. As VR gets better, there's a more of a risk for people then to get escape in these realities. I think that's always there.
Well, that's on how much you use it, though. Like for depression and anxiety, this is the whole main thing about these two podcasts. But if someone is depressed or anxious and they are miles away, and their best friend is miles away, or away on holiday or something, they could sit there, log on to this chat room, with this other person. Not the chat room. I don't want to say chat room, but they could log into this
virtual environment,
joined virtual environment, and actually be with that person. Instead of them being on their own and having to experience.
Oh no, I don't mean that's dangerous. I meant No,
I'm not saying it's dangerous. I'm saying that is a help, if anything.
Oh, I'd say that's completely healthy. Maybe not from a physical point of view. So it's good.
Well, instead of having a phone call,
you
sit there and look at that person, and it kind of becomes like the avatar. It'll turn into the sort of avatar syndrome.
Yeah.
Whereas obviously we can go on to the negative of that, and someone actually killed themselves because of the Avatar film, because they watched the film and knew that real life wouldn't be that great, and they couldn't live with life anymore, so they took their own. And that's just a movie. Do you see what I mean? And you don't know what sort of mental state that the man was in. He could have had ongoing mental health issues. But
I think
for a movie to do that. That's
developing the way technology is developing, the way that obviously films are looking so realistic now with the computer generated effects. You've got a point where people are seeing these worlds and their brain is saying to them, "I wish I lived there."
yeah.
I'm a massive futurist. I can't wait. Well, it could be the apocalypse in the next 100 years. Who knows? But I can't wait to see what the future holds in terms of technology and the development of the human race. And I'm a big fan of science fiction. More of the, utopian, not the dystopian side of it. I do like dystopian, but I mean, my hope for the future isn't. You could have someone of a certain disposition that turns around and goes, "Oh God, I wish Star Trek was real, or I wish Star Wars was real." And now you can't really. The fact that we know that the Death Star isn't real, or Darth Vader doesn't exist, but the new CG technology now. Look at Rogue One. It's incredible what they're developing, and soon you won't be able to differentiate it.
Spoilers, right? But if you haven't seen Rogue One, what the hell have you been doing for 2 years, right? But if you want good CGI, it's the end of that. That's all I'm going to say, because that was,
these people get, if you're of that disposition like that gentleman was that unfortunately killed himself.
It's just horrible.
You're looking at a world that doesn't exist, and yet you want to be in that world. And I think that's a lot of people that suffer with certain anxieties. They don't.
But what does that say about our current world? That they want to trade our world off for this imaginary world. Like,
true, but go back 100 years. Yeah, let's say 100 years, and most people had books and their imagination, but their imagination wasn't made flesh, so to speak, through technology. So,
there's a difference between imagining something and actually seeing it and being like, "Oh my God!" Like I'm actually seeing.
And the brain is a funny thing, the way you can trick the brain, especially with VR. Give it another 5 years, and VR will probably look photorealistic.
Yeah,
I literally photorealistic, and then it's a case of, well, actually, the situation I'm in is pretty crap at the moment, or I'm feeling really down, and this virtual environment, you can become 100% absorbed. Because the interactivity now. They're looking at new technology where you've got the hand controllers. What they're trying to do is create gloves where when you pick an item up, the gloves will create resistance, so it feels like you're holding a physical object. Or when you get close to a wall, it will make resistance, so it feels like you're actually touching a wall.
That's incredible.
I think, again, it's all about these issues that people have. They've been around for forever, more than likely. It's about the human race being able to identify them, but then with every new technology can come a new addiction.
Yeah.
But I think that VR can be potentially really dangerous just because of the complete and total immersion. Not only can that person that's not feeling very good, or they suffer with depression, not only they can be immersed in a world, they can become someone completely new within that. And as artificial intelligence gets better, avatars within games will then be able to interact with them much more realistically.
Yeah.
Which is subconsciously, if not consciously, tricking you into thinking that it's more real.
That you're into it. That could also force you into being a person that you're not, though.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Because if there is no consequences, you can turn into the darker side of yourself.
Well, it's always interesting. You've got there's a couple of films that came out, and I can't remember what the film was called. It had Bruce Willis in it, and it was
Surrogates.
No, it wasn't Surrogates. No. And essentially, what it was a bit like Westworld, and I haven't seen Westworld, but I know the premise. You had this city block, or 3 or 4 blocks, and you had androids that were created, and you could pay to go there, and you could do what you wanted. You could be a criminal. You could have sex with a prostitute, but every character, every avatar within that was an android. And the rest of the narrative is not important, really, but it's the case that you could go in there and...
I think that is Surrogates.
No, Surrogates is where they wear their bodies full-time and they just sleep on a bed.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, you could go into this environment. The film wasn't very good, but obviously people have stolen the idea and used it in more successful things. And you could say, okay, well, human nature is human nature. So would this application of, we play, for example, Call of Duty or Far Cry 5. Far Cry 5's got pretty dark tones, but we're virtually shooting people on screen. And a lot of companies, for example, when the Columbine shooting happened in 1999, there was a lot of focus on Doom, and they said that Doom was a direct or indirect influence on the two shooters. And I can see that point of view, and I think it comes down to the psychological disposition of the person. For example, you could have a person that could be influenced and absorbed enough in a game that they would then act out their fantasies in real life. I think there's other points there that will trigger that. And then you've got a situation where there's people that are very frustrated with life, but they're of the disposition that they know it's morally and ethically and legally wrong to go and do that to someone. But if there's an outlet where you could actually play out these fantasies, could that be healthy? Could there be people with psychological conditions, which I'm not going to talk about right now because I don't want to get involved into it, but if they played out these fantasies in a virtual world, could that potentially mean a safer real world for the rest of us? It's controversial. I don't know.
It is controversial, but they've kind of started doing that in a subject that I don't really want to bring up, but I feel like it is relevant. But in Japan, they are making sex dolls, right, of children, specifically aimed at that. That's all I'm going to say. So basically...
Well, there's two big arguments here.
If they're going to do whatever they're going to do, they do it to a doll and not a real child, and that's why they're created. Now, obviously, it's very controversial. It's like, should they even be created? But then, obviously, there's the other hand of like, well, if they are, then, and this person can't control their urges, then that's going to be a real child that's on, that's going to be the victim of that. And it's very controversial, but it's something that I don't particularly want to. I don't think it's right for our podcast, I'm afraid, but that is relevant.
Yeah, well, I think it's a new application of technology, whether it's ethically or morally correct. I'm not going to comment upon that on this video. It's well within, far out the scope of this video. But again, it shows, but it still plays to the theme we were just talking about. And I think we're looking a bit into the future, but not that far. Trust me, it's not that far at all. People go paintballing, and BB gun shooting and things like that. And I don't think there's a direct influence on video games and activities on that to make people go and really kill people. What I think is the people that go and do it, for example, are of a disposition where they are influenced or have the ability to be influenced by these things. So
some people do, for instance, that it's airsoft is the BB gun thing.
Sorry, that's right.
They just want to feel the exhilaration, of
they
being
want to
in
play
that
soldier.
Yeah, they do want to play soldier without being shot. It is just a bit of fun, but I suppose it's the same as playing Call of Duty. It's that sort of thing.
But for example, I don't play Call of Duty for the action of shooting. I play it for the immersion, the tactical and strategic experience, and the idea of, so I think it depends on the person. Why do you play shooting games?
Don't really know. I don't really have an answer for that. I prefer them because I like the viewpoint of it, and I like me being in that experience.
Yeah, but that's why I'm saying first-person shooters specifically, because first-person games are different stories. But for me, I like the power of it. I like being able to influence it. You get a game like Doom, you're killing demons. I like the power. I think there's a massive evil enemy out there, and you're there stopping it. I like that fantasy.
Doom is its own subject. I've got to say it. Doom is its own subject because
but I'm using it as an example because it's a fantastical shooter compared to something like Far Cry.
Oh, definitely.
It deals with demons, and hell.
That's exactly the reason I play it, because it's the power. It's being the good guy. It's it's not a point of the odds are like so small, like, you'll never survive, but you've got to try and fight to try and survive against unmatchable odds. This one, Doom is all about a game where you are the unstoppable force, and the people with the little chance are the demons.
But you see,
You know,
I
they
play
can't.
it also for the tactical strategy. It is first-person chess, and for me, cerebrally, from a cerebral point of view, when you're playing that game and you get to the arena-based shooting,
Yeah,
you have got to concentrate your fire on certain enemies at certain points, be in certain positions. When your health gets to a certain point, you know you need to leave certain enemies to kill them to get your health back up. You've got to swap weapons at the right time. It's very, very tactical. More tactical than your average. And yet
yeah.
it's in a tactical world.
But then if you compare like Doom to, you know, the Call of Duty campaigns or Killzone or something like that, or even Far Cry 5, you know, it's Doom is its own league. But these ones are just, you're experiencing a campaign. You know, it's always like you are the underdog, and you are trying. You know, you are beating those odds, and that's where you're getting the satisfaction because you know, you're not expected to survive, but from what you're doing in the game, you are surviving, and that's where you get that gratification from. But I like selling myself into the story. I like being the underdog, and I like.
Well, they're fantastical odds, aren't they? They're not realistic.
Well, no, they're not. They're not. You know, look at Medal of Honor. What one person takes down the whole of Nazi Germany. You know,
yeah.
It's not going to happen. But it's good for morale. It's good for morale of the people that are playing it, and you know,
psychologically, I think it's good, and it inspires people to try a little bit harder in their daily lives. You know, I think Call of Duty is a completely different story for me. That's an interactive film.
Yeah.
You know, it's an experience of itself.
Well, it's just an interesting campaign. It's one of those things you play once, and that's all you play it for.
Yeah.
But I think they're good. But you really like real-time strategies because you like to really control everything. Like, you like to control every aspect of the battlefield, or, you know, and that's good. You know, you feel in control. You feel better when you're playing them, when you best the opponent.
It's also about, I like to exercise my brain. And a lot of games are more reflexive. That it's all about your reflexes. Grind games, I think there is some, you know, there is some cerebral stuff at the start when you've got to choose what kind of character you're going to be and how you're going to build them to best the people. But I think a lot of it's by the numbers. First-person shooters, again, depends which ones. I think Destiny and Doom really are. Destiny with the whole 6-player and really coming together as a team. That's really good. And again, psychologically, you get a real sense of achievement when you do the end game on Destiny with people that you enjoy playing it with, and you're all working together. That is one of the best feelings I've had, and I think it's a really positive experience. If you've got positive, healthy people playing it, and I think that's a really good experience. But strategy, though, it stretches my brain. They Are Billions, for example. They Are Billions is a zombie survival game, but you play in the real-time strategy, and you've got to survive waves of zombies whilst building your settlement.
Yeah.
But it's a roguelike game, so if you die, you die, and you have to start again. And I think
you have to kind of use what you've done, what you've learned from the previous ones, like previous runs, to kind of prosper longer.
Yeah, and I think that's really healthy for people because a lot of the time in life you only get one chance. So a game like that, you have to put a lot of care into planning, and you play the best you can. And it's not like a distraction game. You invest into it, and I think it's good intellectually. And I think a game like that is just as good as exercise. Exercise is good for the body. It stresses your body and relaxes your mind. And a game that exercises your mind is important for your mind. And I come out of that feeling quite rejuvenated, whether I've won or lost. So I think there's different genres of game, not just of definitely different genres of game can have a different effect on people. And I think it's really important to play the right sort of game. If you enjoy gaming, depending on your disposition, if you're not feeling very good one day, then you need to pick the right sort of game for you that will help bring you back up.
But they are some very interesting points. What we're going to do is we're going to wrap it up here now because we've been on for over an hour, I think.
Yeah, my queef is starting to sag, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah, as I say, the points that we've covered and the experiences that we've had we always knew that this was going to be a hard-hitting episode anyway. But needless to say, if you've got any experiences that you want to tell us, we will revisit these sort of things in the future.
And we'll revisit them in the comments. Leave
a
comment.
The comments, you will get replies. You have my word, you'll get replies within 24 hours, I tell you. Probably less than that. But for subjects like this and videos, if you want to see different subjects, if you want to see us tackle other subjects, let us know, because we enjoy this sort of real situational podcasting, because this has been a very interesting sort of discussion and debate. Like, we've both had different experiences, which is kind of surprising, really. I suppose we've had quite different experiences with it, with gaming itself. I've been very reclusive with gaming, and it's made me, I think, more positive, and I've used it, for deaths in the family, to just try and kind of distract me when I was younger, whereas you've used it to divert it away, which is something that I didn't know beforehand about. You've used it to try and, pardon the expression, you kind of dodged the problem, just so you could get your head around it.
Yeah.
Whereas for me, it wasn't. It was all about remembrance for me. I was tackling it by spending that time, like with the Tetris thing that we spoke about last time.
Yeah, it's the specific game for you. You could really.
I didn't necessarily want to play Tetris, but at that time I wanted to be near my uncle, and he, that was the thing for me. And I think it's great that we had all these different sorts of views. But as I say, in the future, we're going to have podcasts every week, as you know. They've been coming out for the last six weeks. We're going to be tackling other subjects, more specifically, because at the start we had our, week in tech and things, and sometimes there's dead periods. But I'm feeling that this channel is growing into specific subjects, so we can really tackle specific problems and events and things. I think that's how it is. So if there's
more meat, less chuff.
Yeah, more meat, less chuff. If there's anything you want us to tackle, we will. And
we want you to drive the content. If you've got something interesting you want us to talk about, we'll talk about it. We've got opinions. Leave your suggestions. Yeah, I mean, we're quite opinionated bunch of people here. So.
Yeah, we are. But as always, if you enjoyed this video, I'm going to do the whole thing that all YouTubers do, because I kind of think that's how you do it now. But if you liked our video, then press the, I think it's thumbs up. Yeah, cool. If you really enjoyed the video and you want to keep listening to us, then press that subscribe button and jangle the bell. Is it jangle the bell? Press the bell.
The notification button. Press that bell.
Press that. But I think, to be honest, the most important thing is just get in touch. Just talk to us. We love the conversation. But we've got Twitter as well. Across the top somewhere, scrolling, is our Twitter handle. It's just @ModdedGossip. You are actually pointing to thank you for your support and thank you for sharing. Talk to us on Twitter @ModdedGossip, and we'll get back to you. We'll get in touch. We'll read out some comments and stuff. But yeah, thanks for being there.
Thank you.
What we're going to do is we're now going to leave the podcast now with an inspirational, uplifting quote from Mr. Ali.
Why'd you do this?
I love it. I love putting you on the spot. That's what it is.
Oh my god.
No?
Right, now hang on. You got it right.
Okay.
A little segue, and I will think of a quote.
All right, you think of a quote. Yeah. If you would mind being as nice to share the video about, as you know that we're on our 100 subscriber push, and that's because at the moment our YouTube is youtube.com/punch the keyboard, because it's just letters. It's just letters and numbers. And what we really want is, we kind of want it to go to /ModdedGossip, because we want to be big boys and we want to wear big boy pants. So if you could share that about it, it would help us out a lot.
Right, okay. Yeah. Don't change so people will like you. Be yourself, and the right people will love you. How'd you like them apples?
That was better than I thought. That was a lot better than I thought. But as always, we've been right. As always, we've been Modded Gossip. Thanks for watching, and we will see you next time. Bye.
See you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.